what's up guys? Hope y'all been doing well. It's been about a month since the last pay-per-view pass I've made one of these videos, and I've had some time to mess with the format, so let me know what you think. But I'm here to talk to y'all about UFC 266, which features 2 title fights as well as the return of the legendary Nick Diaz. So the UFC is kicking off the last quarter of the year with a banger. I mean, this main card, like I said, 2 title fights, one of which being Valentina Shevchenko defending her flyweight title against Lauren Murphy. Of course, Valentina is heavily favored in that one. Lauren Murphy is coming over, I think, a 1,700 score for the underdog. So we'll see how that one turns out. So with that being said, I'm breaking down 2 fights for this main card, one of which being the main event between Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, where Alexander will be trying to defend his featherweight title, and the other fight being Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler, a rematch that has been 17 years in the making. It's been a long time since we've seen Nick Diaz fight, and he's finally making his return to the octagon this Saturday night. So getting into Diaz versus Lawler first. So the first time that these two fought was 17 years ago, back in 2004, I believe. And Nick Diaz ended up winning via TKO in the second round. The last time we saw Nick Diaz fight was back in 2015, whenever he was fighting Anderson Silva. The infamous fight where he was laying around the cage, taunting Silva, begging him to come forward. The last time we saw Robbie Lawler was in his fight against Neil Magny back in August of 2020, which he unfortunately lost. And needless to say, after 17 years, a lot has changed since the first time that these two fought. So saying the past experience from the first fight is going to matter now, maybe there's a bit of experience. Nick Diaz was getting the best of Robbie Lawler standing up, but like I said, 17 years, a lot's changed. Aside from that, Robbie Lawler definitely needs to win. He's been on a losing skid here lately, and he's had a bit of bad luck. You know, he's had tough opponents like Colby Covington, Neil Magny. He had that bad luck ordeal with Ben Askren, and he's gained a lot of experience though. You know, from 17 years ago to now, he's definitely had the resume to stand its own, and he's been around to see the game change and evolve and develop, and I'm sure he's had to grow with it. And on the other side of the cage, Nick Diaz. Everybody knows at this point the no fucks given attitude that him and his brother Nate bring to the table. The Nick Diaz army has developed into a cult following, it seems like. He's definitely a crowd favorite. Everybody's very excited to see him come back, especially after being away for so long. And he kind of has almost gone on to admit that the sport has done him wrong, which I don't know how many people agree with that. But yeah, I think we've missed out on the prime years of Nick Diaz. But he says he's back. He's a force to be reckoned with, and he's ready to show the rest of the world what he's capable of. Aside from being the crowd favorite, he also has relatively no injuries, at least none that we know of. He has steadily been training. I know we've seen the pictures and the training videos that he's been posting, as well as just being dedicated to his craft, you know, finding his love for the craft after being away for so long and staying consistent with it. And as if this fight couldn't garner and gain more speculation and attention, this fight has added more controversy after they made the weight change. So this fight was originally going to be held at 170 at the welterweight division, but in the past few days it's been moved up to 185 at the middleweight division. And so this is where the speculation comes in. Nobody really knows the true reason. The common rumor is that Nick Diaz was struggling to make 170, so they moved it up to 185. But Robbie is down as ever. He's just ready to fight, handling it like a true fighter would. I don't know what the contract was worked out between them two, but it is what it is, and we're going to get a fight Saturday night no matter what, hopefully. So both of these guys, 2 OGs of the fight game, 2 fan favorites. Everybody has respect for Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler. I feel like Robbie Lawler is kind of getting the short end of the stick when it comes to fans and the media and stuff like that. But I'm sure that's one of the things that's adding fuel to his fire, inspiring him to make a big impact on what he's going to do on Saturday night. Nick Diaz, a lot of pressure on him. He's gone out and had a very vulnerable, open, and honest interview in the past few days with ESPN, and I encourage everybody to go watch it, giving us an insight to his mind of not only what's been going through his head the past few years, but where he is at now as a man, mentally, emotionally, and going into his comeback fight. And it's pretty amazing to see, you know, that these fighters, that as tough as they are, as real as they are, they still get the respect of being a vulnerable human being. Nothing but respect for both of these two. I think we're going to see some factors of Robbie staying active as well as Nick Diaz. You know, is his gas tank still there? Is he going to be able to get into that rhythm, that pace that we're used to seeing the Diaz brothers set? You know, when they get in there, they bring the energy. It's a different type of atmosphere when you watch a Diaz fight, right? As far as what we're going to see in the actual fight, I believe that this fight's going to stay on the feet for at least the first 2 rounds, maybe end up on the ground briefly, but both of these guys seem like they're more than willing to engage on the feet. And this is going to be a 5-round fight instead of a 3-round fight, so there's going to be a lot of time for each one of these fighters to work with. Conditioning for both of these guys is definitely going to be interesting to see. Nick Diaz at 38 years old, how much does he have left in the gas tank, not only physically but as well as mentally, to carry on throughout the fight? That being said, at the end of the day, I see Nick Diaz winning in the third round via submission. And who knows what implications it could have for the division. I mean, he's been mentioning Kamaru Usman. He's been mentioning that he's still one of the best fighters at the top of his game. So it'll be fun to see what happens if he does win. Robbie Lawler, I'm sure he's going to try to pull a massive upset. It's going to be a fight. It's going to be my pick for fight of the night. Hope y'all get to watch that one as well. All right, getting into the main event. So this one's going to be between Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian T. City Ortega for the featherweight title of the world. And this one is a very interesting matchup. Both of these guys, when it comes down to their styles, have very different styles, very different mindsets. And you got to see the differences in style and mindsets if you watch the Ultimate Fighter competition where they all live in the house, where both of these guys were coaches. And in that time, we got to see how Brian Ortega and Alexander Volkanovski got to get under each other's skin, mess with each other. I mean, they got to experience more time together, which is something that most fighters don't usually get to experience during their fight camps. You know, usually you don't see that guy until you're doing the media, press conferences, weigh-ins, and then the actual time you walk into the cage. I think Alexander had 3 out of the 4 finalists that made it to the Ultimate Fighter competition finale, which is an impressive feat on its own. So this fight has a lot of hype behind it. I mean, especially if you follow along with UFC, if you watch the Ultimate Fighter competition show, like I said. And these guys, they may not hate each other, but they definitely don't like each other. Volkanovski's expressed much frustration with Brian Ortega. This fight was actually supposed to happen back in March, but Alex had COVID, so he had to pull out. Therefore, the fight got delayed. In between that, they made the show. So these guys have had months to go back and forth with each other, months to try to understand each other, get a good understanding of what each one's bringing to the table. So when it comes to this fight, I think Volkanovski is going to be trying to prove a point. You know, he wants to show folks that he is the true champion. I know a lot of folks, myself included, still consider Max Holloway to be the true champion of the division, but that's a fight for another day. For right now, this one's on full focus for Volkanovski. He has to get through Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega is looking to have his second title shot, with his first one being against Max Holloway, which did not go well by any means necessary. So Max Holloway is the one common opponent that both of these guys have fought, and although Volkanovski was able to do much better with the striking, Ortega has completely changed his game around. So we'll get more into that here in a minute. So to no surprise, Brian Ortega is going to have the height advantage against Alexander Volkanovski, and that should come to no surprise to Alex. I mean, he's fought many fighters that have been taller than him, and he is a high pressure fighter regardless, you know. So with that pressure that Alex brings to the table, he does not hesitate to throw significant strikes. There's no energy wasted. Each one of the strikes that he throws, they're ripping, and they're doing a lot of damage when they land. He has excellent ground and pound, so that when he's able to get his opponents on the ground, he's just brutal to them. He just beats them to a pulp and makes sure that it's a fight to get back to their feet. He's had a lot of success with his takedowns, which I think sealed the deal against the fight with Max Holloway. So he does his best work whenever he's up close and personal with his opponents. And honestly, Volkanovski brings a different type of mindset to the game. I mean, he is conditioned like no other. He trains like no other with anybody at any weight class, which isn't uncommon, but it's still very, very impressive. He used to be a bigger guy. He played rugby and then he lost a lot of weight. Now he's fighting at 145. So he is conditioned and he is strong, much stronger than most featherweights are. And Alexander seems like he's ready for wherever this fight may take him, whether it's 5 rounds deep or whether it's a 3-round war. He's ready to end it quickly. He can go the distance. I know he's had a lot of adversity. He has a very impressive resume. He saw some adversity whenever he fought Chad Mendez, and then he also had some adversity where he just can't put some opponents away. But he's willing to stay patient. He's willing to trust his skills and his game plan to be successful. And on the other side, we've seen Brian Ortega climb his way through the ranks with an almost unstoppable jiu-jitsu game. Very, very impressive high-level jiu-jitsu. If he's able to get you to the ground, you know you're in big trouble. And Ortega has a very impressive resume as well. We've seen him fight some notable opponents, including the Korean Zombie, his most recent fight back in October of 2020. And he came out like he downloaded a completely new moveset. A very different Brian Ortega, not talking about his haircut, but yeah, he came out there and he displayed some incredible striking. You know, he also said in his last training camp that he let his jiu-jitsu coach go home so that he could focus more on his Muay Thai, his kickboxing, and his boxing, and overall striking defense. So I definitely look to see Ortega bring that same striking efficiency to the table, at least for the first few rounds. But then I think he's going to try to eventually get Alexander to the ground to try to submit him. I believe that's where he's going to have the most of his success if he's able to get Alex on the ground. On the opposite of that, I think Alex is going to be able to withstand the storm, be able to take Ortega on standing on the feet, throw in some takedowns to keep him guessing and try to finish the fight with a ground and pound game. But we'll see. You know, both of these guys share a common opponent in Max Holloway. They both have fought him at least once. Alexander's fought Max twice and is obviously the more successful. And, you know, Ortega, he learned a lot from the last time he fought Max Holloway. But being good at striking is one thing, being good at striking defense is another thing. And I think that that's something that Ortega is going to have to definitely improve on. I think that Alexander Volkanovski has been in there with tactical strikers enough to know where and when to place his shots better. So I look to see Alexander winning this fight via 5-round decision victory and still remaining the featherweight champion of the world. Going forward from that, if Max Holloway can get one more win underneath his belt, I think he's right back into contention for a rematch with Alexander Volkanovski again. Other than that, guys, I want to thank y'all for tuning in. If you haven't yet, please give me a follow on Twitter at Combat Contact. Subscribe to the page, like the video, share. Tell me who you think is going to win, as well as follow my friends who are making some great content of their own. As always, stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.